What's freedom actually look like for you? When you think about being stuck in a toxic relationship or stuck inside of narcissistic abuse, what does freedom actually look like for you? When I pose that question, it might produce a different thoughts in your own mind. There might just be a piece of kind of like deer in the headlights of like, I don't even know. I don't even know what that even sounds like, what it means, what it looks like, how it feels, how to experience it. You might not even know. And that's okay with where you are. I'm just asking the question because I want to be able to have this be a piece inside of your mind and inside of the thought process of like, what does freedom actually look like? Because right now you might know the exact opposite of freedom. You might know the entrapment. You might know the piece of being stuck in the toxic relationship. Maybe being stuck and gaslit into believing his reality. Maybe being stuck inside of all the lies he keeps placing upon you. Maybe being stuck in the different beliefs that you have that currently keep up this frame of reality that you're looking at. Ultimately, what you're experiencing in the moment oftentimes is you physically being mentally, emotionally, physically trapped inside this relationship. This could be from the finances, this could be from the beliefs, but ultimately it comes down to an addiction, to the story that you're telling yourself. And what this actually looks like on a day-to-day basis is this process of knowing that there is an underlying thought, an underlying program that currently is running in the back of your mind that's keeping you either coming back or keeping you staying inside a toxic relationship, even though you know in your head that it's not a good place for you to be. You might know logically that this is not where you want to be. This is not who you are. You look back at yourself and you're thinking, this is not who I am. But all reality points the exact opposite. Because even though you know internally on a soul level that this is not who you are, this is not how you act, this is not the relationship you should be in, this is not where you actually want to be with your life, you know in your soul that that's not true, but you see it in your actions that it is. And it produces this weird incongruence that ultimately leaves you in this cycle and in this loop of constantly being stuck or constantly oscillating back to this guy over and over and over again, leaving you a place of feeling trapped. If you guys are tuning in here and you're like, what is this guy talking about? Who is this guy? My name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I work with women to actually help them break free of the trauma bond, eradicate the bond that's actually keeping them addicted to the toxic guy, and find themselves again. Inside of all of this, your growth and your development is paramount and is key. We teach this with habits, with tools, with systems to make sure that you actually build yourself back up, line upon line, precept upon precept, so that you know who you are and you have a different level of confidence, of clarity, and of certainty inside your life. But right now, when you listen to this, that might not be who you are. You might be struggling just on a day-to-day basis to have the motivation to get out of bed, to be able to focus on what is required for you to actually do. You might just be living in survival mode right now and trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. You're very resilient, which is why you're even listening and watching this, because you've been putting in reps to actually move to where you currently are. But at the same time, all of these reps moving to where you are, you're still struggling. You're still struggling because people see you and they think that you have it together, but in reality, you don't. You're just literally operating in survival mode, trying to be able to do the next best thing, trying to be able to get through, trying to be able to show up for the kids, trying to be able to show up for work, trying to be able to function, but underneath it feels like you're just dying and you're screaming inside. Now, this is oftentimes because of the toxic relationship, because of the guy that you're either with or the guy that you were with that you can't stop thinking about. But ultimately, you realize that your freedom has been sacrificed. Your freedom has been given away. Then you've moved from a place of having freedom to now being trapped in a toxic relationship. This could be trapped actually with him in the moment. Financially, you can't be free. Mentally, you can't be free. Emotionally, you're still tied and you're still tucked. Or it could be the place where you're away from him physically, but you still have this bond, you still have this tie, you still have this thing that's pulling you back and sucking you back into the relationship over and over and over again. And so in dealing with this, we have to be able to help you break free mentally and emotionally. We teach and we talk about the freedom formula, because if I can help you see and understand the story that you're telling yourself, it will help you find freedom. But that story you're telling yourself, we have to be able to get down underneath the layers of all the other feelings and emotions that currently have you distracted from what is actually happening, what is actually going on. Recently, inside of different coaching calls, I've been asking people certain questions very repetitively. They're like, well, this is going on. I'm like, why? Well, because I feel this way. Well, why? Well, because this happened. Well, why? Like diving deeper and deeper so they can actually find the clarity of what needs to shift. Do you realize that all of your life is built on stories? It's built on what you're telling yourself in the moment. So if we can find the root cause of what you're telling yourself, the root cause of what's attracting you to narcissists, the root cause of keeping addiction, and we can start changing that and shifting that and reframing it, it cascades to every single aspect of your life and everything changes. Everything starts to morph and adjust and become different inside of your life because you're starting to see and acknowledge and know and understand, wait a second, this actually doesn't define me. I'm not actually this person. This isn't actually the reality, but instead you've fallen into his reality or another version of it because you haven't been able to find freedom. And ultimately, you're not sure, what does freedom even look like? What does it even sound like? What does it even seem like? What does it even show up as? What does freedom actually look like for you? When we talk about freedom, we talk about it in 4 different areas, which is body, being, balance, and business. Your physical, your spiritual, your relationships, and your money mindset. What does freedom look like if we paint a picture with those? Like freedom inside of your body. Freedom of how you actually show up for you. Freedom actually looking in the mirror and being happy and confident with the version of you that you see. Like when you look at yourself in the mirror, can you actually appreciate that body that you have? Can you appreciate who you actually are? Or does it not seem like it's possible because of everything he's projected and degraded and put on you? Like when you strip back everything and you take a look at who you are, you expose yourself, can you actually appreciate who you are? Can you find the connection to yourself and investing the self-care, the help, the time that you need to be able to work out, to be able to eat healthy, to be able to do the things that are going to help promote your motivation, your energy, your drive for you on a physical level, because we have to be able to help the frame that your body is in. And inside of all of that, we have to be able to help you grow and develop who you are physically, because that is going to help support the mental aspect. You going and working out and releasing anger, rage, releasing frustration inside of even a physical workout will have huge benefits on the spiritual and the emotional side. But what does freedom actually look like on the spiritual and the emotional side? Spiritual might be releasing yourself from all the rules and the regulations that you've boxed yourself in by the Christianity that you've ascribed to. Realizing that there's more love that's there than to judge. That oftentimes we look at so many things being judging versus love, and you can't have both that are operating in the same exact moment. There's so many different condemnations and pieces that are put down on you inside of mainstream religion or Christianity, what you can or can't do. Yeah, you're a bad person because you divorced. All these things get pressed upon you. There's also a disconnection that happens from your purpose, from your goals, from who you actually are. A disconnect from who you're being on a day-to-day basis. What does that freedom look like if you step into that? How do you show up differently? What does it sound like when you're connected to yourself, when you're connected to God? What does this look like when you have freedom with others? Maybe this is just your friends, being able to go out, interact, connect, communicate, being able to have a support group that actually cares about you and you're able to show up to without the toxic guy berating you, without him giving you the silent treatment, without him putting you down. Like, can you imagine being able to invest in the people that you want to invest in and not being shamed for it? Does that look like freedom? What looks like freedom to you when you talk about relationships? How would freedom show up when we're talking about your kids? You actually being present, no longer being stuck mentally and emotionally, but being present with them on a day-to-day basis. What would freedom be if you were able to experience that relationship fully? If you were able to connect with them fully? If you were able to see them, help them, grow them fully? What would that freedom look like in your life? How would you experience it? What would it feel like? And the other piece is inside of business, and that's the money mindset. What would it actually feel like if you had freedom inside of the money? The money is the piece where people always get like squirrely and weird, especially because a lot of Christianity condemns money, even though they're driven by money. A big piece inside of this is just understanding you are here on this earth to grow, to develop, to have dominion over the earth. That's in the Bible. You're here to be able to grow and step into your own abundance. And oftentimes we look at God as having a very limited cash flow or checking account for you. When in reality, he is abundant and he's willing to give. But you also have to be willing to actually show up and do the work required to grow and develop who you are. And oftentimes that's coming down to your mindset, your thought process. Which currently when you're with the toxic guy limits your thought process, limits what you can actually do, limits what you actually show up. So what does freedom actually look like in the area of your money mindset? What does freedom actually look like in the area of abundance, not just in wealth, but in all areas? You truly stepping up and being abundant in who you are and who you're called to be. What does that actually look like for you? Because if you do not start to paint a picture of freedom, you will start to just fall prey to his reality. If you don't paint a beautiful picture of freedom and what it looks like, you'll start to believe his drab picture is actually what the freedom looks like. So we have to be able to tie you to a goal. We have to be able to tie you to a version of you that's out there, a version of you that's actually free, that's experiencing peace, joy, happiness, that's connected, that can make decisions, that no longer deals with these triggers, that no longer has the trauma bond, that no longer is getting sucked back in a toxic relationship, but you stand in your power. You stand confident. You stand with certainty, knowing who you are, having clarity about the decisions that you need to make, the decisions that are happening on a day-to-day basis. You stand empowered for you. That's what we're trying to see. That's what we're trying to build. I want you to drop into the chat, what does freedom actually look like for you? You've been listening to a bunch of it today. What does freedom actually look like for you? If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, either way, let us know, what does freedom actually look like to you? And then one more favor, just share this with someone. Share this with someone who needs to be thinking about their freedom versus their prison. They need to be thinking about the future versus the past. They need to be thinking about the next steps versus what has them currently stuck. Share this with one person and leave a comment, leave something that lets us know, what does freedom actually look like for you?